Hello folks, this is Mike and this is Sunday, June 16th, 2024, and this week we're going to be talking about a breaking news event. Probably all of you have been hearing about this and how it affects New York notaries public. This is how I like to teach notary law in classes. I like to talk about relevant and current events in media, anything to make it more interesting that you can apply to the law when teaching. So this helps people understand what's going on in the notary law. So we're going to be talking about this section number 3, Public Officers Law in the New York State Notary Public License Law, where all exam questions come from by law. No person is eligible for the office of Notary Public who has been convicted of a violation of the Selected Draft Act of the U.S. enacted May 18, 1917, or the acts amendatory or supplemental thereto, or of the Federal Selective Training and Service Act of 1940, or the acts amendatory thereof, or supplemental thereto. Uh, let's put it in layman's terms, everyday language. The law has always had amendments, and we just had one, and it's still applicable to the amendment that went down Friday. Today is Sunday. New law that's in the news. Okay, so this is the new law, and this came out on June 14th, which was Friday, 2024. Subtitle D, recruitment. We're talking about draft for wartime, okay? And you have to register with the Selective Service System. And now it's going to be an automatic registration. Up until now, technically, all young men in the United States, up until last Friday, were supposed to voluntarily register themselves for the Selective Draft uh, Act, Selective Services, and that means you're just registered. So if they pronounce that there's a war, they can bring you in, like in Vietnam, and bring you in. So, a lot of people don't bother filling that out, and nobody's been prosecuting that. But now, in highlighted in yellow here, Section 3A1, except as otherwise provided in this title, every male citizen of the United States and every other male person residing in the United States between the ages of 18 and 26. It's funny, it was 18 to 24 up until last Friday, and they raised it to 26, shall be automatically registered under this act by the director of the Selective Service System. So now they're just going to get all your information and send you a card. I'm going to show you what it looks like that says you're registered. So there's no more voluntary registration. During Vietnam, about 25% of the people that went to Vietnam went there because they were drafted. They didn't volunteer. This is kind of interesting here. This section shall not apply to any alien lawfully admitted to the United States as a non-immigrant under Section 101A.15 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So I guess you only have to be a U.S. citizen, even though you're living here, to be drafted into the military. Okay, so the U.S. isn't formally planning to order young men to enlist in the military yet, despite claims made online, and I'm going to show you some of those. Now that the registration will be automated, nobody will be required to voluntarily register for the selective services. You're automatically registered, whether you want to or not. So technically not registering until now was a violation of the law. So how long do you go to jail for draft evasion? So if they declare war, and the president can do that with Congress, and you don't go, um, failure to register is a felony punishable by a fine up to $250,000 and or 5 years imprisonment. Also, a person who knowingly counsels, aids, or abets another to fail to comply with the registration requirement is subject to the same penalties. For example, I'm a veteran. I do have a son in college who's turning 20 this month, and he would be under that. And so if I decided to take him, to avoid that to another country, I would be a felon too. Okay, I'm not saying that's how I feel or not. I'm just giving an example. So back in this picture here of these guys, they were burning their registration cards, and you go to jail now in the United States if you get caught doing that. Okay, so this is from the New York Post. I don't know if that's your kind of news or not, but it says NATO's preparing for potential ground war with Russia including plans for U.S. troop involvement. This was June 7th. And U.S. announces new $225 million package for Ukraine as Biden meets Zelensky in France. And NATO is mapping out land corridors to enable U.S. troops and other allied forces to reach the front lines quicker in the event of a broader European ground war with Russia. So we have been sending weapons to Ukraine, where now they can strike just in the last few weeks into over the Russian border, long-range missiles. And we were warned not to do that with Russia. So yeah, it's kind of interesting what's going on. So what does the new military draft registration law mean for New York notaries public? So the House of Representatives passed a measure on Friday automatically registering men age 18 to 26 for selective service. The selective service was already mandatory for male age 18 to 24. The United States has not had a draft since 1973 and as of June 12, 2024. There are no official plans to reinstate it. However, the selective service would draft eligible young men in the event of a national emergency if authorized by Congress and the President. And see this is a blow up, like when you win money, they show you the big check. This is a blow up of the little card. It's kind of like a Social Security card. And that's where it's perforated and it folds and goes in your wallet if you're registered for this, waiting for them to send you to one of these quick boot camps to ship you out to a war. Okay, so there's the law again. And back in the Vietnam War, there were, a couple 100,000 people that resisted the draft and didn't register. I know over 50,000 of them never even came back from Canada because Canada took those, and people, a couple 100,000 fled into all different countries. So the thing about it that's a little kind of threatening is that Ukraine urgently needs soldiers, but some men are desperate not to fight, so they're getting snatched up off the street there. While volunteers lined up to fight Russia at the beginning of the war, manpower shortages are now an issue that could seal Ukraine's fate. And so NATO's supporting Ukraine, and I'm going to show you how the U.S. is already lining up with other NATO countries to commit troops. So this is the actual representative of NATO making a speech threatening Russia that we have in NATO, which includes U.S. troops, 300,000 ready. That's a start. So Russia on alert as NATO preps for war, develops land corridors into Russia through NATO countries, and that's for U.S. troops. So NATO nations prepared for a massive war with Russia after Moscow warned that it would change its nuclear doctrine. Basically, Russia is threatening to go nuclear, use nuclear weapons if this happens, if it escalates any further. Okay, so here's more news. You're probably aware of this. Russian submarines off the east coast, off the coast of Florida, and Russian ships off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic. Yeah, so, to me, Russian submarines off our coast is nothing new. I happen to be an anti-submarine warfare operator in the U.S. Navy for 8 years, where my job was to locate and chase Russian submarines, and we carried nuclear torpedoes. And I can tell you this is nothing new, so I think that's being hyped up a little in the news, but all of us know somebody, a young guy who's 18 to 24 years old, so this might be concerning you all, even though I'm applying it to the New York Notary License law. Okay, so this is somebody who was a childhood hero of mine before I knew about anything about race or politics. I was just a young kid that loved sports. I grew up poor, and sports was my way out and a way to have self-esteem, and I idolized this guy, Muhammad Ali, who flew like a bird and stung like a bee. And he was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War. And June 20th, 1967, Muhammad Ali was convicted of evading the draft during the Vietnam War. Here he is. When they arrest you for this, the military has special police, MPs, military police that arrest you. So he got arrested for that back then. So subsequently, he could not be a notary public in New York. So is it still possible to be a New York State notary public after a draft act conviction? So notice that we're going to see an exception now. The law says you can't, but when the law says you can't, there are exceptions, and those are the trick questions on the exam. So the New York notary license law states that an executive pardon would remove the disability. So Muhammad Ali can now apply to become a New York State notary public if he were still alive. I'm not trying to be funny about that. But back then, President Carter granted full pardon to Vietnam draft evaders, and that included Muhammad Ali. So there's the exam answer. Can you be a New York State notary if you were convicted of a violation of the Draft Act? And the answer is generally no. But yes, if the exception applies, and that is an executive pardon that would remove the disability. And that goes for any felonies, for those of you that are studying for the exam, or anybody, who's had a felony. I literally do get three to four people that call me every month that have a felony conviction and want to know if they can be a notary, and the answer is yes. Okay, so New York notary law summary. You cannot be approved for a New York notary public license if you have been convicted of a violation of the Draft Act, which is the new selective service law update as of June 2024. You cannot renew your notary license every 4 years if you have a conviction after license. So, if it happened after your license, you couldn't renew, which is due every 4 years. And now we know you can get an executive pardon to remove the disability in the future. So there is a way to become a notary public, even if you had a violation of the Selective Draft Act. So, yeah, the law kind of talks out of both sides of its face, and that's why people can get in trouble on the exam, because there are trick questions like this. There's general laws, and then there's exceptions. Okay, so for those of you that are going to be sending your coworkers or your employees to the notary exam, or you're getting ready to take the exam, New York State just finally updated their exam schedules. It's on our website all the way up to October. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months up until now. They were just publishing 2.5 months, and now they have 5 months. We're starting to get even more normal. There's 13 locations throughout New York State to do this exam, and had 12, but it's 13 now, and you can pop on our website at howtobecomeanotary.ny.com and check exam schedules and procedures. We have them inside of our New York Notary online class, which is the exam prep, where less than 1% of our students report failing the exam the first time they take it. For those of you that are notaries and you're going to be renewing because you don't have a violation of the Draft Act conviction, you can get your notary supplies and update your stamps. You do need logbooks and journals now in case you haven't got one. You got to maintain that for 10 years. We have testimonials. We just updated that page again with many, many, many more. That was long overdue. Sample New York Notary Practice Exam. People are taking that all the time to see what the exam would look like. And for those of you that have the New York Notary license, which we call the traditional license, you can upgrade to remote online notary and start charging $25 and notarizing not just for people in New York State, but for other states from New York and even internationally all around the world, as long as you're doing it online from in New York. Give us a call, 347-427-9091, extension 1. Ask for me, Mike, and I'll be more than glad to answer any of your questions. I really do appreciate you guys coming and watching these videos. I love all you guys, and whatever you're doing out there, I wish you the best in your careers and going forward, whether you're trying to improve your resume with a notary license, or you're trying to start a part-time business, traveling as a notary, or notarizing online for the whole world with a website, or both. Let's face it, having a notary license increases your respect from your employer, your coworkers, and the general society all around you. The public appreciates you. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.